gentlemen, please welcome Olympic medalist and broadcaster BOLDON.
Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. Hope you didn't eat too much during lunch so you can pay attention to our next guest. What you call danger and mayhem, he calls Monday afternoon at 2:45. Take a look.
Travis Pastrana.
The best part was he didn't need to do it.
I think everybody was like, what are you doing?
And right there, that is definitely a signature Travis Pastrana move.
And Travis has the gold. Trying to shatter the world record for distance jumping in a car.
That was sick.
Kidding me?
A double backflip from Travis Pastrana.
Will we see the 360 from Pastrana? And he pulls it off.
Please welcome to our stage, Travis Pastrana. Thank you, sir. Travis, I was born in the South Caribbean, where my father thought the most dangerous thing I could do is to not check my shoes for snakes before I put it back on. When you have the inclination as a young man to do these sorts of things, what do your parents say?
Well, my dad was actually, he was a Marine. All my uncles were in construction, all kind of, he grew up in a family of 11 kids.
Right.
So they were always jumping off of everything and getting in. They were almost all boys, so they did what, what boys normally did. And I really looked up to my uncles, and that was pretty much, jumping off of things, riding things. As it turns out, I was the runt of my family.
Right.
So
You're the runt.
I got beat up a lot, and
Okay.
I realized I was really durable, so action sports were kind of the safest thing for me.
Now, there's a move on, it seems, to put more of these sorts of sports into the Olympic Games. BMX obviously is on there as well. There are purists who would say, no. You guys have your X Games and your other things. Leave the Olympics for the quote-unquote pure sports. Respond to those who feel that way.
That's a really tough question because I'm kind of on, I believe the X Games are really what action sports, that was the foundation. That's what built us. And, it's hard to say that, especially coming from yourself as someone that, as a runner, someone that, definitely people will say that action sports aren't athletic, but I totally disagree. Action sports are your artists. Action sports are the kids that might have been your outcasts. They're your ADHD. They're the kids that might not have been the best at taking advice, and they might not have been the best at, being conforming to a team, but they were the ones that were the most self-driven. They were the ones that went out there on their own before there was even a sport, and they did it because they were passionate about this stuff. And I figure anything that you can be that passionate about deserves to be on the main stage with the Olympics. Speaking
of ADHD, you do a lot of different things. You drive, surf, bike, everything. Why so many different things?
I said passion a second ago, but it all comes back to passion. I figure anyone said, with motocross is where I start out. It's where my parents, we ended up with 3 mortgages on the house. The whole family, all my uncles contributed with gas money to get me to these events and, to help get the sponsorship that I needed to be a professional motocross racer. And then a year before I turned pro in motocross, the X Games came out. And everyone's like, what are you doing? You're wasting, everything that everyone sacrificed for you. And I just figure your passion. If you're passionate enough about something and you wake up with the passion, you're going to find a way to be successful at it. So for me, the hardest part was knowing that if someone else is more passionate than I am, no matter how much sponsorship or how much drive or how much want that my parents or my friends or anybody has for me, you're never going to be the best unless you have that passion. And for me, every time I didn't have that passion, and I had it for something else, I knew that the only way I was going to be successful is if I followed my heart.
Now, they may be looking at us and thinking, look at those two guys. They could not be more polar opposites, right? This guy does backflips. This other one used to run in a straight line for his entire career. And yet, we do have something in common because both of our fathers were born in the Caribbean. So your dad's from Puerto Rico, and you represented Puerto Rico. Tell me what that was like.
Well, not really representing Puerto Rico, but my grandfather was actually from Puerto Rico, and what was really neat was when the Puerto Rican team came to the U.S., and they said, look, we've got a smaller team, and we're going to race the Motocross to Nations, which is the biggest, team motorcycle event in the world. And I had the opportunity to race for the U.S., but the track that was featuring that was right by my house. So of course my dad was like, all right, come on, we got to help this team out. We got to help this country a little bit. And they came out, and it was awesome because we were able to really help them get some track time on that track and everything. And for me, it was always about, not to say the underdog, but helping everyone kind of be on that equal playing field and be able to do the best they can.
Let's talk about fear for a little bit. I know the fear of an Olympic final. Some people have a fear of public speaking. And they see you do what you do for a living, and they go, not only not in a million years could I ever do that, but how does he overcome the fear of death?
Practice. I'd have to say that, everyone goes, oh, man, you guys got to be crazy. But that couldn't be further from the truth.
It's very calculated, isn't it?
It's calculating risk. And some people would never put themselves in a situation where they ever had to calculate risk at that level. I mean, everyone's like, oh, it's a life and death situation. But for the most part, it's not.
Really?
That's what I love.
We saw the video, Travis.
But that's what I love about our sports. When you say it's a life and death situation, it's not a metaphor.
Right.
We're going out there and, but the way to overcome that is to go, okay, I know every variable. I know everything that could possibly go wrong. And I have an out. Okay, maybe it's not a good out. I'm going to be in the air, and we're like, oh, it's not rotating. Well, I need to do this, this, and this, and I'll only break both legs, but I won't break my neck. So, and you have to be able to make those decisions. It's like a, football player. He sees three guys running at him, and he's going to pick the smallest. It still sucks, but it's better than the opportunity.
I'm glad you brought up injuries, because I have a list here of the things, a partial list of the things that you have damaged, broken, dislocated. Dislocated spine, torn ACL, PCL, LCL, MCL, meniscus in the left knee, broken tibia, broken fibula, surgery on your left wrist twice, left thumb once, 2 surgeries on your back, 1 on your right elbow, 9 on your left knee, 6 on your right knee, 1 on your shoulder. How are you feeling, Travis?
Awesome. I feel like I've lived.
Really? And here's the thing, because, sprinters have sort of a reputation for being divas. And, we go out there and we get a hamstring pull and we're out for 2 months. Like, no, coach, I can't possibly run. I have to nurse myself back to health.
Better than soccer.
Yes. Yes. And I started in soccer, and you are correct. But when you have something go wrong, and you've been getting injured for a long time, according to this, when you get injured, how do you deal with the comeback? Because for me, I retired when I was tired of being injured and I was tired of the rehab process. How do you go through that?
Well, I mean, kind of along the same lines now. I'm more of a coach. I'm trying with Nitro Circus to, inspire the younger guys and give them a platform with Nitro Circus to be able to come out. And it doesn't matter if you're a scooter rider or BMX rider, to give you the opportunity that I had to go around the world and chase your dream kind of deal. But for me, everyone says, why would you go through this again and again?
Right.
And I tell everyone, when I get hurt, I'm not disappointed that, pain, I feel pain like everyone else. I mean, pain is pain. But my biggest problem with being hurt is that I don't get to do what I love to do. So why would I stop doing what I love to do so I'm not hurt? To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, so as usual, we're going to give you a chance to ask some questions of Travis. While you guys get your thoughts ready, I want to ask you, Travis, where's the future of these sports? We've seen, it was a double backflip, then it was 3, and then somebody had to try 4.
Exactly. No, everyone looks at it from the outside as these sports and where can it go as far as a trick basis.
Yeah.
But these sports, action sports is a lifestyle. It's a culture. The reason it's so successful is because it gives kids an opportunity, kids that are normally outcast, kids that are, you shouldn't say we're all outcasts, but a lot of us that have a more difficult time paying attention in a classroom situation. Don't like looking at a board and figuring things out. They like to learn from experience. So for me, it's the culture and the lifestyle of freedom that inspires and drives kids to this, whether they realize it or not. I mean, honestly, the rider that just for the first time did 4 backflips on a BMX bike, just ridiculous. He grew up in New Zealand. He didn't have a TV. He is.
Yeah, the internet though.
Yeah, but no, I mean he grew up completely like
really cut off. Okay.
Like really completely cut off.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean he had heard of BMX, he had heard of this stuff, but his parents were Maori, like his dad was a Maori warrior. I mean, this guy was that far exposed, Jed Milton, and he did BMX because it allowed him. He had like 8 brothers and 2 sisters, like a huge family, and it allowed him that freedom to go out, and he just started building jumps. He didn't really know about anything other than what was going on, and he goes out and he lands a double backflip. Well, Dave Muir at the time was the only other BMX guy that ever landed a double backflip, and still he's got no way to get out there. And then again the internet comes around and all this stuff, and all of a sudden he's doing a triple backflip. Like no one even thought that was possible, and this guy that's not getting paid a dime builds all his own stuff. He's shoveling his own ramps,
right.
And it's that passion, and that it really inspires for action sports.
We have some questions. Any questions for Travis? Looking for the mic. Yes, number 8.
Travis, Mike McCarthy from Sporting News. I did a story for Sports Illustrated about the amazing pay disparity between action sports and mainstream sports. I mean, a lot of action sports athletes, they're risking their lives, and they're making such little money compared to, say, an NBA player or an NFL player. Why do you think that is, and do you think it's going to change in the future?
It might change, and actually that would change the face of action sports. X Games was the best and the worst thing that's ever happened to action sports. It gave us all a chance to chase our dreams, to travel the world, to make a living. Some of us a really good living, and I couldn't ask for anything better. But at the same time, it takes this thing that we used to go to the, out in the middle of nowhere and the dunes and the desert, and we'd find jumps. And it was that freedom of learning stuff and doing stuff. And now every jump.
Would become a little corporate?
It's not necessarily corporate, but every jump is the same distance.
Oh, it's
so everything's standardized. Everything is now becoming like gymnastics, which is an awesome sport. I love gymnastics. But, that's not where my passion is. My passion is the freedom that action sports give. So you have 2 things going right now. One is the X Games, which is traditional. They're your motocross racers. They're those guys. And you can make a great living in that stuff. But I feel like the actual core and the heart of action sports is still in the freedom that you'll never get by. You can't judge freedom. You can't judge style and expression. You can say that artist is really good and that artist is really good, but when you put them together, it's difficult. So I feel like your true artists and your true action sports athletes will never make a great living, but there will be action sports athletes that can. And I think that's awesome that we have the option, and that people aren't, your parents and your teachers are giving their kids the option to get on a skateboard and to chase their dreams, even if their dreams might not be something that's along the lines of what, not what my parents thought I was going to be doing, that's
right,
for sure.
Right. Another question for Travis. Yes, 7.
Hi, I'm Nikki Ruffin from Ohio University. I've seen you do some pretty extreme things. In your opinion, what is the most extreme thing you've done?
It's a good question. Probably got married. No, it's been awesome. Actually, my wife is a couple-time X Games gold medalist as well. She's a lot more of a badass than I will ever be, and we have 2 little girls of our own. So that's been really fun. But for me, anything you're not prepared for, and I think so many kids, they see all these action sports and they're like, oh, I just want to do that, and they go out and they hit these big jumps, they do anything, and I'm like, that's crazy. It doesn't matter if the jump's 2 feet or 10 feet or 210 feet. For me, I found the fun and the excitement is not only figuring out what's possible, but why it's possible, how it's possible, analyzing the risk. And I think probably to answer your question directly, I once took a kid's big wheel that I bought at Toys R Us for $90 down Bob Bergquist's mega ramp. The takeoff was about 55 miles an hour, And I figured I was probably going to crash anyway, so I did a backflip the first time. As it turns out, the plastic wheels don't roll quite as fast as the skateboard wheels. I landed up short, bounced all the way to flat, and knocked myself out, and thought when I woke up that that was probably not the smartest move that I'd ever made.
So there you have it, Calculated Risk by Travis Pastrana. We have another question here.
Oh, in the back?
Oh, way in the back, yes.
Hi, Travis. My name is Brittany. I'm also a professional base jumper. So
Yeah.
I get you. Yes. So when you became a father, how did that affect your decisions? Let's say what exit point you were going to jump, or any particular stunts that you were going to do.
Thank you. That's an awesome question. And to your point, a person that you probably know pretty well and that it was kind of guided my life a little bit was Shane McConkey. And Shane was the most inspirational man that I've ever known. He inspired people to do stuff that was absolutely next level in action sports. He was one of the best skiers in the world, one of the best base jumpers, not in that he was always base jumping, but that he pushed the limits of everything that he did. The biggest inspiration I've ever met, and he had a wife and a kid, and unfortunately, he had a malfunction. Something that was a simple jump, something that he was well calculated, and the ski that he was using didn't come off right, and he ended up passing away. And everyone asked me that question, because there's a lot of a lot of similarities between Shane and myself in our life, and kind of how we've lived our life. And for me, it's a really tough one because I really want to grow up as a father. I want to grow up and be that person that my wife can depend on, that my kids can depend on, and someone that's there for them as well as, opposite direction. But having said that, when I hang out with guys like Shane and the guys on Nitro Circus and the action sports athletes, they are the most motivated, most driven, most passionate people that I've ever met in my entire life. Whether it's for no money or for all the money in the world, they'd be doing the exact same thing. And when I had the option when, we had our first kid, to continue racing NASCAR, which is an amazing sport. But my wife was, she does better when she's skating and not so much when she's watching cars go in circles as well. And she was more passionate, more driven there. And I wanted my kids, to see their mom where she is passionate, where she's driven, where they can see this role model and this amazing inspiration and all these inspirational people. And I think it is my duty to my kids to show them that passion and that dream, and that they don't have to wake up every morning miserable with their work, and that they can go and do what they love to do. And I take more risks, or not more risks, I take less risks, and I calculate it, and risk to reward is always changing. But I believe it's my responsibility as a father to show that passion. And yes, base jumping is the one thing that my wife really doesn't like it when I do. So that's a tough one, but it's something that I feel I need to continue.
Another question? Yes, 8.
So, hey Travis, Chris McFadden from Temple University. Just wanted to thank you for coming out. Been a huge fan my entire life.
Oh, thanks, man.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, what do you foresee for the future of the X Games and other extreme sports, but more specifically for the youth? Because, as you mentioned, it is such a, way to build their self-esteem and things along those lines.
I think the biggest thing for action sports in the future, obviously X Games is doing great. There's a lot of really great, events to get into. But what's really neat is that the guys that have made it in action sports, you got the, Tony Hawk, I guess, is definitely the biggest, the Ryan Sheckler Foundation. But Tony Hawk is taking everything that he's making and he's giving it basically to making skate parks in lower income areas to help kids that were like Tony, like myself, that just needed that outlet to be able to go and continue to follow their dreams, in their individual dreams, as well as, there's some people that love sports, there's some people that love team sports. For me, it was always that individual aspect that action sports provides. And I feel like as long as you have guys like Tony, guys like Ryan, guys that are continually giving back to help create these, action sports will never die, because the mentality of kids and the passion of kids, of young adults, even now getting older and older, that once it's in your system, once it's in your blood, it gives you that adrenaline, that thrill, that freedom that I have never found in anything else. And I would imagine that action sports will continue to grow. Will they ever be a football? Will they ever be a soccer? I don't necessarily see that they will become that, because it is an individual thing. Each person driven to do something that's unique and for themselves, not for the money, not for anything else. There's no amount of money in the world that's worth jumping out of the plane without a parachute and hoping your buddy catches you on the way down. But it's totally worth it.
We have time for maybe one more question. Yes.
Hi, Phil Greco from Repucom. Travis, what's your thoughts on action sports 5 and 10 years down the road? You look at things like the X Games around the world, the Dew Tour, Street League, you know, the World Surfing League, but there's not really a consistent platform. What are your thoughts long-term to it becoming too structured, but also at the same time trying to follow down the road of giving more consistent visibility to the athletes?
You know, it's a really tough question, because as I kind of touched on a little bit earlier, what makes action sports so popular and so great is the freedom, it's the individuality. And to get that to the general audience, to the people that don't understand, you know, to, I hate to say the older generation, but the people that are brought up on sports with all these rules and regulations, it's very difficult for them to understand. I mean, the most watched sport in X Games is high jump. I think it's silly. You jump over a bar, and I mean, it's great, but it's just because it's so easily understandable. But that's not what action sports is all about. So for me, Nitro Circus is what I've been my biggest passion. And why I'm passionate about it is because everyone goes out there, and it doesn't matter if you're on a motorcycle, you're on a skateboard, you're on a BMX bike. We had a guy on a pogo stick, but he was doing things that were so amazing and so grand. We got a guy that has spinal bifida that they always said would never be able to be in action sports.
Wow.
Aaron Fotheringham goes down this ramp that's 70 feet tall and does double backflips in his wheelchair and inspires millions of people, because this is what he wanted to do. He goes to skate parks and does stuff that no one on bicycles can do. He does flares on his, I mean, it's a regular wheelchair. And you know, now he started his own wheelchair company, selling his much better wheelchairs for half the cost of what the insurance is selling them to these kids and stuff, and really trying to give back that way. But I feel like it's that passion that I am trying to continue on through Nitro Circus, to say, look, there is a platform, and if you become the best, if you're passionate enough about it, we'll give you a platform to travel the world and have fun with your friends. So it's you know, it's a tough deal, and there's a lot of different platforms. But for me, the lifestyle and the passion is what makes action sports action sports. So it's a tough thing. I think it's going to be fun, and it'll never go away.
Well, Travis, we've come to the end of our time, but wow, you ooze passion, and our wish to you is health and strength in all your continued endeavors.
Thank you as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Travis Pastrana.
Much appreciated.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Assistant Director of Social Media, USC Athletics, Sarah Bergstrom.
Hello. The crossroads of technology